Chapter 1: The Dangerous Possibility of Taking Leadership Seriously. Spiritual Leadership by Leonard Duhan.
Chapter 1 begins with an important question. Has all the focus on leadership today actually created better leaders? Leonard Duhan argues that the answer is mostly no. Even though there are many books, training programs, and efforts to develop leadership, many organizations still struggle with poor leadership, lack of ethics, and ineffective management. Duhan explains that many leaders fail because they are driven by the wrong motivations, such as ego, power, or control. He describes that common types of ineffective leaders, like narcissists, the overly controlling boss, or the hands-off manager who avoids responsibility. These leaders don't just fail because of lack of skill, but because they misunderstand what leadership is. He then explains that the real problem isn't a lack of techniques or strategies. Instead, what's missing is personal growth from within. True leadership, he says, comes from an inner change, a shift in a person's values, motivations, and self-awareness. In the end, Duhan argues that the kind of leadership we need most is spiritual leadership. Leadership based on strong values, honesty, and a genuine desire to serve others rather than gain power. These failed leadership types are not just theoretical. Most of us have encountered at least one of them in our real life. What makes them dangerous is not simply that they underperform, but that they actively cause harm. They destroy trust, suppress creativity, and damage the morale of the people around them. Duhan's point is that these leaders share one common flaw. Their leadership flows from an unexamined, self-serving interior. They have never done the hard inner work required for genuine leadership, and everyone around them pays the price.
So, what is our first key takeaway from this chapter? Our first key takeaway is that the leadership industry has produced knowledge without transformation. Duhan observes the enormous resources that have been poured into leadership development: books, workshops, programs, and seminars, yet great leaders remain rare. This suggests that the problem is not a lack of information, but a failure of genuine inner change. Knowledge about leadership and actually being a leader are two very different things. This connects directly to our discussions about the difference between management competence and authentic leadership. You can know all the right things and still lead badly if your inner motivations are misaligned.
For our second key takeaway, we have organizational failure is primarily a failure of character, not strategy. And he's basically saying in this key takeaway that operations and organizations don't fail because they had the wrong plan. They fail because the people that were running it didn't do the right things and had the wrong values at hand. And most companies do takeaways from the wrong decision that was made, but the real question is who was making the decisions, what was the structure surrounding it, and who actually made the decision, not just the company itself. For our third key takeaway, we have that pseudo-leadership is more dangerous than no leadership at all. And that's basically saying that a fake leader doesn't just fail to help or that he's not there at all. He actively causes damage in whatever company you're in. And when there's no leader, people know something's wrong. But when there's one that isn't primarily good, it's actually worse for whoever you're working with because they are instinctively killing off the community you have around you. Our fourth key takeaway is that true leadership requires an inward journey, not just an outward performance. You can perform to be a leader all day, but if you haven't done the inner work, you eventually fall apart. And we've gotten really good at training people to look like leaders in the right presence in the right time. But when pressure hits, what comes out isn't your training, it's your character. And if their characters aren't good, something is bound to fail in the future.
Our fifth and final key takeaway is that leadership is inseparable from the service of others. Duhan is unambiguous. Leadership that is centered on self, on accumulating power, credit, prestige, or security is not true leadership at all. Authentic leadership is, at its core, an act of service. This connects to a servant leadership framework we have discussed, and it challenged the still common cultural assumption that leadership is about being in charge rather than being responsible for others. So, how does this apply to leadership overall? Great leadership starts from within, not from a title or position. Character and values drive organizational culture. Self-serving leaders damage the people and the places they lead. Genuine service to others is the mark of true leadership, and the inward journey is ongoing, not a one-time achievement. Duhan reminds us that leadership is not a skill set to acquire, but a way of being. No training program can substitute for genuine inner transformation. When leaders operate from ego and self-interest, the whole organization suffers. When they lead from authentic values and a commitment to serving others, that too shapes everything around them. Before we ask how to lead others better, we must first commit to honestly leading ourselves. Thank you.